thank you, Nicole, for the kind introduction. My name is Szabi Péter. I am Hungarian, originally from Budapest, and I am a medical director at DSM next to Basel here in Kaiserhaus. And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to talk today a little bit about the nutrient density of food items, and also to put this into the context how we can reduce inequity in the society via adding nutrients to food where needed. Let me start with this statement, which certainly does not come as a surprise to you, that our food systems are not sustainable. And how we look at it from the DSM's perspective, we put it on three pillars: people, planet, and livelihoods. So when we talk about sustainability of food systems, from the people perspective, here I would like to highlight and focus in my talk mainly on malnutrition, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, the so-called hidden hunger, which I'm going to explain what does it mean. And importantly, those diet-related diseases like overweight and obesity and other non-communicable diseases, which cause a lot of problems, or I would say even the most problems health-wise today in the mankind. Of course, antimicrobial resistance is also an important topic we are addressing, and from planetary perspectives, the greenhouse gas and other gas emissions from livestock, biodiversity loss, food waste, they are also very important topics which we are addressing. And last but not least, inequality in the livelihoods, that farmers and other food workers are not able to generate a fair and stable income, and also that they many times they lack basic needs such as food, healthcare, and education. So we see within DSM that these are those three pillars which address or through which we are addressing these most burning needs in today's society. But as I mentioned, let me focus on people and topics like hidden hunger, which can be defined as micronutrient deficiencies, not only in the developing, but also in the developed countries. And I will show you an example soon for that, which can impact health, survival, and also economic development on a society level. So we all know that micronutrient deficiencies can lead to poor health, to cognitive development impairments, or in elderly age-related problems, or also in the cognitive domain, loss of productivity and physical performance can lead to low birth weight babies, as we also seen in the recent pandemic situation. A detrimental effect on the immune function if a person is not well nourished by certain vitamins like vitamin D, for instance. The immune function can really deplete and can cause a lot of problems, being more susceptible to viral and other infections. And also, and I will again focus on this a little bit, how these micronutrient deficiencies are related to stunting and also obesity in later life. So all in all, we can conclude that susceptibility to diseases increases with micronutrient deficiencies. What is very important, though, that as I show here, about 1/3 of cancer, all cancer cases, and about 80% of cardiovascular diseases and type 2 diabetes deaths can be prevented by proper lifestyle, including healthy nutrition. So you see on this graph, basically the life course of all of us as we age. On the x-axis, you see that or health quality or health status slowly declines, right? And the aim would be actually to push this as much to the right as possible, meaning that our health status, as shown on the y-axis, remains stable, maintaining our good health. And when the time comes, yes, then it's a relatively short period when our health declines. But until then, we can do a lot of things. And here, of course, I would like to focus on the prevention in the earlier parts of or stages in the life where nutrition plays a substantial role. So here, when we talk about nutrition, I would like to focus on the nutrient or micronutrient intakes and status. Status meaning certain biomarkers in our blood, in our different organs, but mainly in the blood, which reflect how well we are basically supplied with different nutrients. And in this regard, a theory has been put forward called the triage theory, that our body distinguishes regarding the importance of nutrient supply to the different organs, saying that we can distinguish between a deficiency state when, let's say, somebody is lacking vitamin C and gets scurvy. So it's concrete and visible and a very detrimental disease. And then if a little bit more, but still not optimal intake of the nutrients are provided, then we can achieve an insufficiency stage where there are some impaired functions. The organs, the bodily systems are not functioning optimally. And actually, this can pose a higher risk for the development of non-communicable diseases, obesity, overweight, and so on. I will come to this in a minute. And if we are well supplied with nutrients, then this can lead to a long-term health, wellness, and vitality. So all in all, a balanced intake of all essential nutrients is required for healthy aging and to reduce the risk of non-communicable diseases. The example I promised to you, it just focuses on one vitamin, which is vitamin E. A couple of years ago, we looked deeply into the published literature and compiled and published a systematic review on the global status and intake of vitamin E worldwide. This was based on the published data, and what came out, you see on the lower part of this graph, actually that which depicts the serum, the blood concentration of vitamin E in different countries and regions around the world. And what has been found that 13% of the global population, according to these publications, were deficient in vitamin E. 66% were insufficient, and remember, this can cause a higher risk to develop non-communicable diseases, and only 21% was in the optimal desired range. And here we also proposed, let's say, a paradigm shift when it comes to vitamin E status, going away a little bit from the clear deficiency and adequacy notion, saying that yes, there is clear deficiency, there is optimal status, but in between there might be this subclinical, not necessarily visible insufficiency stage, where also the risk, like I said, of non-communicable diseases can be substantially higher. So we talked, Dr. Michel talked about behavioral science and consumer preferences. And here, I also would like to go a little bit into this direction in much less details, of course. But one of the problems is that energy-dense food, those food items which are rich in energy but low in micronutrients, they became quite affordable. And this contributes to the obesity pandemic, I should say, what we observe nowadays in the world. So you see here this simple image saying that $1 or euro or Swiss francs can buy you much more calories, actually, if you buy a food item which is energy dense and low in nutrients. So like the potato chips here as compared to vegetables, for $1 you can get much more calories. And this links to my next graph, which shows actually that the main driver especially for the low-income consumer is to get the maximum calories out of a food item. So without going into too much details of this graph, basically this shows that the extremely poor or very poor socio-economical groups, they have a very undiverse food pattern, if you want, focusing on mainly starchy food, so energy-dense food, but they do not have the chance to get the enough amount of micronutrients in order to prevent those non-communicable diseases, as I mentioned, obesity and diabetes, for instance. And on top of that, the high energy dense food items, I mentioned potato chips, for instance, they may drive overeating. Why? Because the high energy density foods on the left-hand side of this picture, they tend to be dry, which means that they are low in volume, right? So you see on the right-hand side, there is the high, the low energy density food actually, and if you look at it, it's much, although it contains the same amount of energy, but out of volume, it's much bigger. So logically, you can eat much more from the left-hand side, which has high energy density and provides you, if you eat more, then provides you even more energy. So ultimately, the problem is that people tend to eat much of the wrong things, right? So the goal would be, and this is from the dietary guidelines for the Americans from a decade ago, actually, but the picture is not substantially different now, saying that people should eat more whole grains, vegetable, fruits, so basically nutrient-dense food items, and limit somehow the intake of refined grains, sodium, saturated fat, and so on. That the reality, the picture is far from ideal. We have talked about the energy density. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the nutrient density. So, per definition, the nutrient-dense foods have a high nutrient to calorie ratio. So the nutrients are proportionally higher as compared to the calories, and provide substantial amount of vitamins and minerals with relatively few calories. And of course, logically, energy density and nutrient density are inversely linked. And if there is an imbalance in the high energy and low nutrient intake, this causes that those health problems which I have been mentioning. So if we can manage somehow throughout the life course to decrease energy and increase nutrient density of not only the food items but diets as such, this can certainly have a beneficial effect to reduce the risk of developing chronic diseases. Of course, there are other factors like genetics, exercise, environment, and so on, which we only partially can influence, but diet, I would like to highlight here the importance of food we consume and the diet. This is also a picture which shows over the past couple of decades how the energy availability of our food items increased. You see from the 60s up to 2010 years, it increased. However, the micronutrient density of the food, they remain relatively constant. So energy increased, nutrients remained the same. There are some efforts from different authorities and science groups, of course, to somehow try to create certain indexes and grading systems when it comes especially to labeling and guidance of consumer labeling of food items and guiding consumers. So here you see, for instance, from the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, in green, showing those nutrients which we should consume more on a populational level, and in red, which we should consume less. And then this is combined in an algorithm, and the different food labeling system are being created on this basis, what you see on the different food items in the supermarkets. And there are other indexes like the NRF, the Nutrient Rich Food Index, also with qualifying and disqualifying nutrients, with the ultimate goal actually to create such a recommendations and guidelines for the average consumer. And this is from Turkey, just an example, what nutrient density, what can be done based on nutrient density, that basically distinguishing different food items and giving guidance to consume them occasionally, every day or several times a day, in order to get the proper nutrients into our diet. So, what is the challenge actually of the food industry and the ingredients industry? We can agree that the global diets, as I have shown to you, become energy dense but nutrient poor, right? Energy was increasing, nutrients remained the same, and the proportion thereof become bigger. So it is easily possible nowadays to be overfed and at the same time undernourished, overfed by calories, undernourished by lack of nutrients. So obesity and poverty may be linked by the low cost, so affordability, what I have mentioned, high reward value, because in many cases energy dense food are tasty and provide a lot of energy, and this leads to a high reward, and also easy to access or to energy dense foods. So ultimately we need foods that are nutrient rich, affordable, socially acceptable, and sparing of natural resources and the environment. And my point is that providing nutrient-rich food to people is an economic duty, right? And also a moral imperative, which can reduce inequity in the society, that every individual ultimately can reach their full potential. And with this, I would like to thank for your attention.